presenting the world's most intense job interview. It's Dana White's Contender Series.
Future stars are vying for that UFC contract. They have a chance literally to change their lives forever.
After the long hours in the gym.
Oh, that's it! That is it!
After the years of grueling training.
What determination they have.
After a lifetime pursuing hopes and dreams. There comes the moment where a contender can make dreams come true. 100 fighters.
Welcome to the Contender Series. These fighters know what gets them to the big show.
10 nights.
One shot and it is over. Wow.
Oh, he's out!
That's it. Action-packed.
One shot to impress the boss and earn a UFC contract. This is Dana White's Contender Series.
Las Vegas, and you know what that means. It is scorching hot outside, but we're inside the UFC Apex for another Dana White's Tuesday night Contender Series live on ESPN Plus at the top of the hour. My name is John Morgan. Dan Tom with me as always. Man, this is getting to be tradition, right? 9 straight weeks. It's just this week and next week are the last weeks of this kind of third season run, but I mean, this is getting to be routine. I love being here every Tuesday night.
Yeah, man, it's dressed to impress. The school season is almost out, and if you want to be invited back to the university, I think we're gonna have to have some strong showings to finish out the season.
Can always count on a strong metaphor game for you there. It's a busy night, by the way. I should say the MMA Junkie radio crew, they're actually on the other side of the UFC Apex right now. Puna Soriano was supposed to be here for some interviews. His fight in Abu Dhabi got canceled. It sounds like they're not going to find him a replacement opponent, so he's not going to be here. But Joanne Calderwood is going to be here as well. So we'll be collecting interviews for you on MMA Junkie. But right now, we're going to talk about the Contender Series. 5 fights, as always. And listen, through 8 episodes, let me pull some stats for you, okay? 26 contracts have been awarded already, at least 2 on every single episode of the season. There was one, of course, where we had 5 contracts given. Every single winner got a contract. There were 2 episodes where 4 fighters got contracts. 3 were 3 and 2 were 2. So we haven't seen any 1s, and thank God we haven't seen any 0s. That's the one we don't want to see, right? Because at that point, we probably had a crappy night.
Yeah, exactly. And, I haven't been shy to point out on nights maybe that might not do as well, or nights that may do well. And we had a nice sweet spot in the I'd say the center of the season, right, John?
Right.
Where we were having a lot of those, the big contract nights. Whereas last week's episode, if you remember, I said, maybe not as much contracts now. It still overachieved my prediction of 2. But I guess what I'm trying to say, John, when I look at these fights on paper, just glancing, especially the odds is a nice kind of portending tell, if you will, is that these are going to be tight matchups, and I think we're going to be in for an action-packed night.
I agree. All right, let's get right to it, okay? We're going to start out in the Bantamweight division, which I know is, I think, your favorite division, more or less, by de facto favorite division right now. Ricky Steele, and by the way, I like this, 2 undefeated fighters. Ricky Steele, Phil Caracappa are going to be matching up. The UFC shared with us their preview video for this contest, so let's set up the first fight of the night.
My name is Ricky Steele. I fight out of SBG, Idaho, and I'm here to prove I'm one of the best. The Ultimate Fighter experience was unlike anything else. It was the hardest thing I ever did. I knew that going into it. I did what I wanted to do. I was able to control the distance and pick them apart. I had one of the best fights on the whole season. I won my fight. I proved I belong. But I was told that they weren't going to have me. And I ain't gonna lie, I was super bummed. I was sad. I felt I was overlooked. And now here I am with another shot. Now I make it count. I take great pride in being undefeated. I have an undefeated amateur record, all by finishes. I am 5-0 as a professional. I put in a lot of hard work to get here, and now I'm here, ready to compete with the best in the world. I'm out to prove nothing to nobody, but everything to myself. I've been doing this my whole life. I feel I'm one of the best. I feel I've got all the tools. And when you watch me fight, you're gonna see something that you don't really see too often. The beauty, the precision, and the level of striking I bring is unlike any other. I've earned this shot because of the hard work I've put in, without a doubt. The time, the sweat, the tears, the injuries I've went through. It's just been a long, hard road, but, I'm ready to have it pay off. I will be a UFC fighter at the end of the night.
I'm Phil, the Hitman Caracappa. I train at Dante Rivera BJJ, and my one goal is to be a UFC champion, nothing less. My whole life I was a good kid, never got into trouble, was always an honor student. I went away to school, got arrested twice for underage drinking, and I really let my parents down. And just for a year, I just wasn't doing the right thing, and I wanted to turn my life around. I wanted to make my parents proud again, and I knew if I could set out on a career that I have full control of, which fighting, it's all in my hands, and finally got the confidence to walk into an MMA gym, and I just fell in love with it. I naturally had hands. Next thing you know, I'm 8-0 professional 4 years later. I'm out to prove I'm the baddest on the planet. I'm a savage, and I'm excited to finally get the opportunity to show the world who I really am. I go out there and look to finish my opponent every single time. Anything they put in front of me, I beat. I knock down every opponent. I go out there for 3 rounds and it's just balls to the walls. I'm trying to take his head off, whether it's kicks, punches, knees, elbows. I'm just extremely aggressive. I know my fighting style on the Contender is it's asking to give me a contract. I don't know what they've been waiting for. They're gonna see tonight that I'm the next big thing in the Bantamweight division, and I'm the next superstar in the UFC. After tonight, the UFC is gonna become the Philly Cara show.
Gonna be one of the worst nights Phil's ever had. The moment I step in the octagon and touch gloves with Phil, I see me just doing whatever I want. I'm gonna dance around, I'm gonna fight my fight, not his. He's gonna be forced to stand, he's gonna be forced to be in positions and see things he's never saw coming.
I will absolutely dismantle Ricky Steele. I know Ricky's expecting this to be a dance battle, but I just want Dana to know that I'm looking to knock Ricky Steele's head right into his lap. He's going out there to win a fight. I'm going out there to end this guy's career. When I go out there, I'm a legit killer. That's why they call me the Hitman. I sign the contract and then I go out there and I'm looking to kill this guy.
I never let any of the talk go to my head. It's in one ear, out the other. I got work to do. I've trained my whole entire life. I'm here to test myself. He's tough. I expect nothing less. So, bring it on.
All right, so Ricky Steele, Phil Caracappa, a battle of 2 undefeated bantamweights. So let's take a look at this a little closer. Ricky Steele comes to us with a 5-0 record. He is the slight underdog at a +105. If you think you recognize the name, he was on the Ultimate Fighter 27, so not that long ago. Injury forced him out of that, so he had to withdraw. He had qualified for the semifinals of that, but he had to get out of the tournament. Now here's the thing that stands out to me: 5-0. All 5 of those fights ended in decision. Might make it tough. Dana White says you don't have to be a finisher, but I think it definitely helps. The other thing that's odd to me is he hasn't fought since he was on the Ultimate Fighter 27. So that's February of 2018 is when that fight happened. He hasn't fought since then. That's a little bit of a concerning thing for me. Meanwhile, Phil Caracappa, he's been a pro since 2017. He's got an 8-0 record. He does have 6 decisions as well, 2 knockouts to his credit. He does have a win over Louis Gaudinot, a UFC veteran, back in 2018. I love his attitude. You ask him about when he started training. He said, I started training at age 21 to become a UFC champion, nothing less. So he's been training full-time for 6 years. But I don't know, interesting because these guys both have so many decisions on their record. So I almost think from a wagering perspective, if you can find an over, that might not be a bad play. Styles make fights, but when you see that many people going to that many decisions, that kind of stands out to me. And should say, by the way, Caracappa comes back at -125, just a slight favorite. Give me an idea what you kind of took out of looking at this matchup. Undefeated fighters, always fun to see them square off, but not necessarily the finishes that you might like to see on their record. Steele will enjoy a 4-inch reach advantage, so maybe that plays into his favor a little bit. What did you think, Danton?
Well, bantamweight is one of my favorite divisions, like you said, and these guys are getting bigger. Steele himself, he's listed at 5'9" to 5'11", depending on where you look. Almost reminds you of that Corey Sandhagen feel. We're seeing these bigger guys come in now. Steele does have that karate and kickboxing kind of background, though he doesn't fight like a Corey Sandhagen. Not what I'm saying here, but he does have those ranks in that, and as well as other traditional gi martial arts like jiu-jitsu, obviously. Whereas you got Caracappa, he comes from the Dante Rivera school, so even though he's not ranked, you got to imagine he's got some BJJ there, right? And he's the more active guy, fighting in Ring of Combat and very proven proven scenes among the East Coast. So I actually like the more active guy here. I've seen this line come in tight. Read about what you're saying, John. So if you like a side here, you can maybe take the favorite. If you like the dog, take that. But I will say this, John. Usually I'm the guy that picks the karate guys here.
Right.
But like I said last one, I admittedly said they haven't done well this season. We haven't had one karate kind of based guy do well, and I picked him before his dogs. I can't pick him here. I got to go with Caracappa. I hope Steele can prove me wrong here.
Fair enough. All right, we'll check in with our man Nolan King. Of course, Nolan King out there on the East Coast. He's a hardcore Contender Series junkie, and he gives us his thoughts each week. He said, simply put, I love this fight. The big question is, how will Ricky Steele look after such a long layoff due to injury? Well, I don't really know what that answer is at this time. I do know how talented Caracappa is. I'm taking him here by decision in a back and forth contract-earning fight. So he likes Caracappa, and he likes Caracappa to get the contract as well. So we'll see. That's a good way to kick things off. From there, we move on to the women's strawweight division, which is a fantastic division as well. I think out of the women's divisions is probably the deepest pool of talent, man. They just continue to stock up. We've got Mallory Martin versus Nicole Designy. Nicole Designy fighting out of Italy. She's looking to qualify and be the first Italian strawweight is what her goal is. But she is training out at Jackson. So, sometimes we worry about the Europeans, are they getting the wrestling they need, that sort of thing. But she's at Jackson's MMA now. So that's nice. She comes to us with a 7-2 career record. She is the underdog at plus 255. Some of her credentials: former IMMAF world champion, so she won a world championship in the amateur ranks. By the way, she is a tattoo model and a body piercer. You will certainly notice that. She is covered up. Cold Coffee back there giving the approving nod. She's done some Suicide Girls modeling. Nolan King wrote a fantastic feature on her as well. Pro debuts in 2015. She is 6-1 in her last 7, so she's kind of streaking right now. She has fought under the Cage Warriors banner, Brave CF, EFC. So we're talking about top-level regional promotions around the world. So I don't think she's going to be intimidated by this moment. She does have 2 knockouts and 2 submissions to her credit among that 7-2 record. But Mallory Martin, a big favorite here, minus 315. I'm kind of interested on this line because her career record is 4-2, which might not immediately stand out to you as impressive. But she is on a 3-fight winning streak. And if you look at the losses that she had, they were to Macy Barber, which of course everybody's high on Macy Barber right now, as well as Suna Davis-Daughter, who's another kind of a prospect as well. Of her victories, 2 knockouts, 1 submission. She's also familiar with big stages, 3-time Invicta FC veteran, 2-time LFA veteran. So interestingly, I don't know that I don't favor Mallory Martin here, but I do kind of wonder if the line being that big is justified. Dan Tom, what say you?
I think it's almost never justified. We kind of touched on it in the bantamweight fights. It's hard to predict the finish in the lighter weight classes. Again, that's not a subjective to men or women. Not picking on either, but we're in the same playing field here, where we don't see a lot of finishes. And when it comes to these women divisions, just like even men's flyweight, it comes down to a lot of scrambles, a lot of positional changes. So the odds, even though they're not heavyweight type fighters, I do say they have heavyweight type swings almost in the way these can go. So
right.
I agree. I don't think the line's too justified, but I am kind of leaning toward the favorite if I am giving away my pick here. I'm
leaning towards the favorite as well. I will say this: Designy is marketable, and I know that's not what they're looking for, is just marketable. Right. But she's got the look, she's got the attitude. She came into the weigh-ins yesterday sporting high heels as well. She's like, hey, any chance you get to put on some high heels, do it. So she's definitely got that going for her. Now let's talk about what our man Nolan King said. Yeah. He said, kind of what we allude to, 4-2 might not be the sexiest record on paper, but Mallory Martin has talent and experience. Her rate of improvement will likely be too much for Designy, who hasn't faced a fighter of Martin's caliber. I expect Martin to win via unanimous decision. So he is picking the favorite in Mallory Martin. Dan Tom, do you want to just make it official?
Yeah, I'm going to as well, but I will say part of me, I think the Nolan King article bias is real, because that's one of my favorite parts of preparing for this each week is reading his fighter profiles. So there's always a little bit of bias. I'm always, whether I pick those fighters or not, John, I'm always rooting for him a bit. I'm going to pick Martin here from what I've seen against the Davis-Daughter and even in the loss to prospects there. But I will say I do root for the Italian to do well, because Italy's kind of been on the rise. And sure. but it's also interesting to see she's doing the cross training at Jackson Wink, but she also comes from places like EFC, where we've had the Ruan Potts and Gareth McClellans of the world. It'd be nice to see like a fighter come from that scene and have some success. Coming from that scene down there.
Yeah, no question about it. I think that's the right pick with Mallory Martin. Like I said, I'm a little surprised at the line, but if we're all saying that it's the right pick, maybe the line is justified. I get scared when I see that high.
Yes, me too.
At this level and with what's on the line, and I think it's just one of those nights that like anything can happen.
Totally.
You have to throw it in there. So, all right, women's strawweight action. From there, we will move on to another bantamweight contest. Although I guess you would say this is a bit of a catchweight fight as well here. Okay, this is Desmond Torres and Steve Garcia. A very, very tight line. We'll get to that in a moment. But the thing that stands out: Steve Garcia, 139.5 pounds for the bantamweight clash. So he missed the limit by 3.5 pounds. I can tell you at the weigh-ins, he stepped on the scale. He obviously, he had the look on his face that anybody does when they miss weight. Right. A bit of a shame for us. But when he got the scale, he immediately went to the commission and said, hey, tell them that we'll do it at this weight and we'll give them 30%. So he was done. He said, I cannot continue cutting. I don't know whether they would have allowed him to continue cutting or not, but he immediately said, I'm shutting it down. I'm done. offered the 30%, didn't say, hey, can we do 20, which is a lot of times standard. So respect to him. But it was interesting because I saw some people on Twitter saying that they had talked to Desmond Torres ahead of time. Desmond Torres, I guess, and Steve Garcia had trained before, and Desmond said, I know he's gonna struggle making this weight. So a little bit of a backstory there, a big miss weight, but the opponent almost called it. All right, so we'll see if that factors in anything. Desmond Torres does come in as the -120 favorite, so a very, very tight line there. Just 22 years old. He's got a professional record of 7-1. Pro since 2017, currently on a 5-fight winning streak. 1 knockout, 4 submissions, including 2 arm triangles, a triangle, and a Kimura. A couple really interesting things about Desmond Torres. I mean, a character, I think. Number one, he was asked, and this was on the bio that the UFC provided us, but, when did you start fighting and why? And he said, I started off with street fighting. I just really liked it. He's like, but then I saw a movie called Never Back Down, and it showed me that there was an actual sport for fighting. After a month, I started with my first MMA practice and competing in BJJ. So I don't know. That just makes me feel kind of old, number one, that he's in Never Back Down, and that's what turned him on to it.
Yeah, dude, this is like a whole other category because before it was like there's the guys who came up watching Rocky old school, right?
Bloodsport, right?
Yeah,
everybody.
That's more like the nerds of us, maybe the Never Back Downs of the world. You want to get into that early 90s where they had those almost octagon-like movies, but people are coming up now. Are we just getting to that age, John, where like Never Back Down is now the point of reference?
We're getting that old. That's a movie that we made fun of, and now it's like launching people on a career. Now, I will say this. Torres, if you'll notice, you'll see it right away. He has a big scar on his abdomen. I was kind of worried about asking him about it,
right.
Is he self-conscious? But he said, this is an answer. It happened at birth. I was born and rushed into emergency surgery. I had a small chance of living because my intestines caught gangrene and had to be cut and reattached together. I had to be in an incubator for a few months at the beginning of my life and wasn't able to be touched by my family. I was born fighting for my life. So it tells you a lot about Desmond Torres. I mean, I just a lot going for him there. Meanwhile, Steve Garcia, again, did miss weight, but he does have a 9-3 career record. He was 14-0 as an amateur, 12 knockouts and 2 submissions among those amateur bouts, so that's pretty cool. He opened his career at 6-0, then he struggled through a 1-3 stretch. But during that 1-3 stretch, 2 of those losses were to Joe Warren and to Elon Cruz, who we saw earlier this year.
Yeah.
So nothing wrong there. He's bounced back since then. He currently has a 2-fight winning streak, 6 knockouts among those 9 career victories. So there are some things to like about Steve Garcia, even though he did miss weight. He is a slight underdog at +100, just a little bit of a tighter line. Dan, Tom, what say you when you were looking at this one?
This one's an all-action fight. This is one where I could see kind of going, ending before the final bell hits. Because, again, not only these guys are trying to find out their type, they're also having a fight against type. Now, these guys don't have the stacked decisions like previous records we may have just went over, but I got to go with my bias here. I know we were poking some friendly fun, of course, but, a little bias. Torres was born in Hawaii as well there, and if you're not born fighting, with his medical condition, he was born fighting in an environmental sense. He's in the hotbed now, California. Obviously, some cross training that happened there. I think he likes what he saw. I think he takes this one.
I like it too. All right, let's check in with Nolan King. He said we should expect a high output scrap between these two exciting bantamweights. Both train at good gyms, getting time in with UFC-level talent. I'm going with the Team Oyama's Torres here via split decision in a close fight. So he's expecting to be really tight. To even call for a split decision, he's definitely expecting it.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards Torres as well. I'll be honest. I think some of it might be a little bit of the character bias, the youth on his side. But I like Torres here as well. At -120, you're not asking a whole lot of that. From there, we move on to our co-main event, if you will, a light heavyweight clash there. Marcos Brigagao versus Jamal Pogues. Marcos Brigagao, just 23 years old, fighting out of Brazil. A little bit of a mystery man to me, I guess you'd say. He has an impressive professional record of 11-0, and he's built that just since 2017. All of those are finishes, 8 knockouts, 3 submissions, 8 first-round finishes. But, when you go through his fights and who he's fought, there's not a lot of recognizable names and top-level talent on there. So I do wonder about the Brazilian regional scene. To me, is such a crapshoot. You know what I mean? On the one hand, there's a bunch of killers because, this is a national sport in Brazil. So these guys have been training in jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, striking arts their whole life, and it's accepted there, and it's a thing that a lot of people do. So, you've got a lot of top-level talent, but at the same time, they don't necessarily go anywhere. Sometimes the record-keeping is just bad, so they may be better than you thought they were, Meanwhile, Jamal Pogues, just 23 years old as well, so a couple of young guys here, training out of Victorville, California, the Joe Daddy Stevenson crew. I like that. 6-2 professional record. He was 9-1 as an amateur as well. He is on a 2-fight winning streak currently, 6-1 in his last 7. The only loss in that stretch to Jordan Young, of an undefeated prospect under the Bellator banner, high highly respected there.
Doing well right now, yeah.
Absolutely. 4 knockouts and 1 submission. I do know Jamal Pogues was actually supposed to fight under the FFC banner here in Las Vegas before he got this opportunity.
Wow, all right.
So was excited to see him there, but even more excited for him here. Jamal Pogues, the small favorite at -145. Brigid Gal, like I said, a little bit of a mystery man, +125. Dan, Tom, what say you?
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of footage, but I liked what I saw. First, I liked what I saw, from Brigadal because I looked him up first. He was a southpaw, lots of leg. He looked really comfortable making decisions in there, and his ground game looks really well. I think he's only listed as a blue belt or purple belt, but he's out there competing, actually on the mats, on the scenes, earning accolades, and it's like one of those like Charles Oliveira purple blue belts. When they get to the ring, and it counts for a lot more because at this division, the more athletic you are, the better you do. Pure and simple, you don't come across a lot of athletes, but Pogues is a favorite for a reason, and I like Pogues. I'm going to maybe even steal not just give you my prediction, but maybe steal a page from Nolan King's book, where I usually don't predict a contract winner per se.
Right.
Nolan's really good about that, but this one I could see happening, not just because of the division, but especially if Pogues comes out here and looks good. He's got a real conservative style, but he knows when to strike. He's got knockout power in his hands, really good jiu-jitsu, I think a brown belt, but just really well-trained under Joe Daddy Stevenson. He's doing stuff that smaller guys do as well, really highly athletic moves. But the difference is, John, I was watching his fights, and you can hear Joe Daddy in the corner yelling things out, and he's got a really unique cornering style to where you really got to almost be like a veteran and loose, and Pogues was tuned in. Like he shows all the things you want to see in a young prospect. I'm really excited about this kid. I think he gets the win, and if he does, probably going to get a contract.
I like him as well. I know we were excited to call him under the FFC banner. We were excited to bring the talent here. Excited Joe Daddy Stevenson product. They're putting a nice team together out there right now. Nolan King, we'll ask him, and he does say, in my eyes, this is the most intriguing fight on the card. Pogues is much better than his record shows. He had success in his defeat to Jordan Young in Bellator and dominated undefeated, highly touted prospect Kyle Noblet. Conversely, Brigid Gal doesn't have 11 wins with 11 finishes by accident. I think someone is getting finished, and I'm leaning Brigid Gal. With a finish, I expect Pogues to get the contract. And I don't know, I got to say, I think I'm right in line with Nolan King as well. I think Pogues is the odds here at -145.
Yeah.
I think they're being held down because of Brigid Gal's impressive record.
Yes.
So I think there may be some value here. And I'm not trying to disrespect Brigid Gal. Like you said, you don't get to 11-0 with 11 finishes by accident. And he's tall, by the way. He's a very, very tall guy. But I don't know. I think Pogues is the favorite here.
And one more edge on that invisible math, John. Training partners, right? Like 6'3" southpaw. That jumped off the paper to me. But who is he training with? He trains at the PRV team. That's a really good team. Our strawweight champion. I'm sorry, who's defending next week there. Trains under there. But there's a lot of females at that camp. Priscilla Cachoeira is another one, right? You don't see a lot of guys there. Whereas on the flip side, Joe Daddy Stevenson, Dominic Reyes. I know he's been doing a lot of training in Denver, but that is his home gym, and he is a 6'3" southpaw. That's not a bad accident to happen.
Certainly had some time with him. There's no doubt about it. All right, let's get to our featured matchup. It's an interesting one as well. Leon Shabazian versus Phil Rowe in a welterweight clash, and the UFC was kind enough to share a little video feature with us. So let's set that bout up with this clip now.
I was supposed to be on the season premiere of Dana White's Contender Series in June, and that fell apart. I was in great shape for that fight. Had barely any weight to cut. It just had a medical issue during the weight cut. The fight got canceled, but now I'm back here. I'm Leon Shabazian, fighting out of Glendale Fighting Club, and I'm fighting to become a world champion. As a fighter, this is where you want to be. You want to be in the UFC. You don't want to be anywhere else. And when you have your opportunity and you don't get the chance to even perform, you feel like heartbroken. A UFC contract will mean the world for me. This is do or die for me. This is everything I've been working for. This is the day I've been waiting for. It's all I care about. Once the fight starts, I'm coming for the finish. I don't waste no time. I go for the finish right away. Pressure and a lot of punches and attacking submissions, knockouts, everything. That's why I'm the main event. Phil Rowe is a good opponent for me because I just see myself dominating wherever this fight goes. I'm a better striker, I'm a better wrestler, I'm a better grappler. I punch harder and I think I'm the physically stronger fighter. I'm ready for anybody. A fighter like Phil Rowe, I should beat on 1 day's notice. I don't see him on my level. Whatever his game plan is, I'm ready for him wherever this fight goes. It's going to be an exciting fight for the fans because they're going to see one of the best knockouts in Dana White's Contender Series. I'm going to put on a performance that's going to blow away Dana White's mind.
I wasn't good when I first started. I didn't have a wrestling base. I didn't have a jiu-jitsu base. I just showed up at the gym and every single day I worked hard. Now I'm 50-something fights in between amateur and pro, and I feel like I put the time in. I feel like I've been through adversity, and I feel like it's just my time. My name's Phil Rowe. I fight out of Fusion Excel, and I'm here to get a UFC contract. I'm motivated. What makes me a problem is just my work ethic and my skill set, you know? I'm looking at this like any other fight. There's nothing changed now that there's people watching. I'm still gonna go in there, I'm gonna do it for myself, and I'm gonna get it done. I'm more of a striker. I'm long, I'm rangy, obviously, so I'm really fluid on my feet, but I like being in grappling exchanges. I feel like my fight IQ is through the roof, so I'm a problem to deal with for sure. I'm better than Leon everywhere. I'm long, I'm elusive, I don't like to get hit. I don't like to take damage, and I don't take damage. I don't get hit often. I move well, I have really good footwork.
I watch his fights and he's running around trying to fight like Anderson Silva, but he keeps his chin up in the air. If he keeps it down or up, he's getting knocked out, I don't care.
If Leon Shabazian tries to strike with me, he's gonna miss and miss and miss. And I'm gonna hit him, I'm gonna hit him, I'm gonna hit him until whoever's in there says, all right, this guy, he's had enough.
I don't care what Phil Rowe says about me. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna knock him out.
All right, so there you have it. Leon Shabazian and Phil Rowe, two 6'4" welterweights going at it. By the way, just for everybody watching, I do want to apologize for the tone that you were hearing earlier. Unfortunately, we are in the UFC's house, if you haven't noticed, here in the UFC Apex, and they decided to test a little equipment during our set. We're not really the priority here. They got a big show going on behind us. So apologize, and I appreciate everybody sitting through that. All right, Leon Shabazian, as he said, was supposed to fight early on this season. Yeah. Interesting, because I just assumed it was a weight cut issue. 23 years old, the older brother of Edmund Shabazian. At 6'4", 170, I assumed it was a weight cut issue. From the video package there, he tried to make it sound like it wasn't. There was some other medical concern, so I'll take him at his word there. It worked out anyway. He was supposed to fight Brock Weaver. Remember, we were so bummed that he lost that fight. Then Brock came back and put on that show last week, which was just phenomenal. Took over as far as I'm concerned. Let's talk about Shabazian. He is the minus 225 favorite here, pro since 2016. 1 knockout, 6 submissions, three guillotine chokes and 2 rear naked chokes among those. 6 first-round finishes as well. 4 finishes in 49 seconds or less. Now, I'll be honest that some of those finishes have come against some, I'll say, less experienced talent. But as I always say, Dan Tom, when you see people going in there against guys that you're better than and you get them out of there in a minute, then that's okay to me. You don't always want to fight quote unquote cans, and I'm not trying to disrespect his opponents, but it's those build-up opponents. But when you are fighting those build-up opponents and you go in there and you get rid of them immediately and show that, yes, I proved that they're not on my level, I'm okay with that when I see that on a record. Meanwhile, Phil Rowe, again, 6'4" tall, which is crazy. A pro since 2014. He started out 0-2, but he's 6-0 since, so he's got that 6-2 record, but it is a 6-fight winning streak. 2 knockouts, 4 submissions as well, 2 rear naked chokes, 2 guillotine chokes, and 3 first-round finishes out of the 6 wins. So what we've got here is 2 incredibly long, rangy fighters, 2 guys that have more submissions than knockouts to their credit, and 2 guys that get things done quickly. So Dan Tom, and let me say Phil Rowe came back at plus 185. So a decent-sized underdog. What did you think when you started breaking this one down?
It should be another fun action fight. And to your point about the weight and the video package, and again, we don't know, and I'm not trying to make a decision in either way, but when we have to do this invisible math, I was able to watch footage, but it also helps to look at their social media. And I went to Shabazian's Instagram, and this guy looks to keep himself in pretty good shape year round. So I don't think it's a case of mistiming the weight cut or this or that. Perhaps there's some credence there, but more importantly, when I watch tape, I can see why Shabazian's a favorite. Although I don't know if I would be super confident in it. I like who Rowe's training with. He's training there at that Fusion XL gym, which means he's got Jacare Souza and even guys like Adolfo Vieira who are stopping in there for jiu-jitsu, and of course Mike Perry, who's in the same division, throwing those mean hooks, giving you those. You're not going to be afraid of much after you spar with that guy, right?
No question.
The difference is, though, even though he has all these tools, he knows how to use his long frame well for guillotines. He doesn't use the jab as well as I like. The process in general just seems kind of inconsistent. Even in his last fight, he's doing things like pulling guard. Now he got away with it, but I don't know if those are the things you really want to see at this level.
Right.
When you're playing with a much higher step up in talent. Because something I noticed, John, in general, these matchups, probably one of the lower as far as who they faced. If we did those tallies the other day, this may be one of the lower weeks on that, which means more surprises when we get to the big stage here, right?
I would agree. There's not a lot of signature wins among the whole night. That's very true. All right, well, let's get Nolan King's thoughts real quick before we put you to the test. He says, neither fighter has faced great competition, but both men seem to be evolving nonetheless. A great job by the matchmakers to put this together. 2 6'4" fighters at 170 pounds. When do we ever see that? Shabazian's clearly the A side here, with the UFC bringing him back to headline despite a weight miss earlier in the season. It's a close fight on paper, but I believe Shabazian will follow in the footsteps of his brother and pick up the win and a contract. As we said, of course, his brother Edmund Shabazian, who's been doing some great things since joining the UFC. It's funny because Leon Shabazian looks more like Edmund Taverdian than he does Edmund Shabazian, but they are brothers. So he's leaning towards Shabazian, the big favorite, saying that he could pick up the contract as well. Dan, Tom, you seem to have some nice things to say about Phil Rowe. Are you picking the upset, or are you going with the favorite?
I want to, but at the end of the day, even though Shabazian doesn't have the hard edge accolades, he puts things together better ultimately. So that's why I'm going to go with him.
All right, I like it. I like Shabazian as well. Well, listen, hopefully we gave you a nice preview there. Like I said, I do think it's going to be some exciting matchups. I think there's bound to be some prizes in store because, as you said, we've got some people that haven't necessarily been tested by top-level talent. They'll be tested tonight. We're going to go jump in the gym now. 15 minutes until it starts. At the top of the hour, ESPN Plus for in the U.S., UFC Fight Pass everywhere else. Tune in. We'll have full coverage tonight. Dan Tom will be grading the winners in the morning. We'll have that on MMA Junkie. Let's go enjoy the fights.
I'm here to prove to myself that I can be great. Everyone told me that I couldn't be growing up, or I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't fast enough, I wasn't a lot of things. I think it's my time to show myself that I can be those things that I always wanted to be.
Eu mereço essa oportunidade de entrar no UFC por causa que eu venho do meu cartel invicto de 11 lutas, 11 vitórias, 8 nocautes e 3 finalizações.
So there's not one place I'm going to be in this fight that I've never been. There's not one thing this guy can do to me that I haven't felt in the gym tenfold. So I know I'm ready.
I fight because I love it. You sacrifice everything for this one goal, to be in the UFC and to be a world champion, and I'm willing to do anything to get this contract.
Watching the world's most intense job interview. It's Dana White's Contender Series.
Future stars are vying for that UFC contract. They have a chance literally to change their lives forever.
After the long hours in the gym. After the years of grueling training.
What determination they have.
After a lifetime pursuing hopes and dreams. There comes the moment where a contender can make dreams come true. 100 fighters.
Welcome to the Contender Series. These fighters know what gets them to the big show.
10 nights.
One shot and it is over. Wow.
Oh, he's out.
That's it. Action-packed.
One shot to impress the boss and earn a UFC contract. This is Dana White's Contender Series.